today. MVP's first MMA card went down over the weekend in Los Angeles, California, live on Netflix, where in the main event, after 10 years, the returning Ronda Rousey submits the returning after 17 years, Gina Carano, in 17 seconds. All right. As well as Francis Ngannou beat a guy and said he was the best heavyweight in the world. Okay? Nate Diaz took an L to Mike Perry, and it did not look good. It was not even. It was not back and forth. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy, Matt. We're here to talk about some of the things that went down over the weekend. And we're going to kick it off with the MVP card, in which in the main event, Ronda Rousey returned to fighting as she took on Gina Carano and tapped her in 17 seconds. Let's get right down to this. This is what all of us were saying. Okay, this is nothing new. If you have been watching MMA, this was nothing new, right? If you've been knowing about MMA, if you watched a little bit of it, if you understand athletes, you understand time away from the sport, you understand time back in the sport, then you understand why Ronda Rousey was always going to go out there and beat Gina Carano easily within the first round. This was why this was never a fight to really pick apart, because this was always going to be the outcome. Now, what's interesting is the layman's, right? What's interesting is the people that aren't the MMA hardcore. Those are the interesting ones, because there's two takes. There are some people that saw that main event that are not huge fans of MMA, barely know about it, just saw something popped up on Netflix, and they're aware of the name of Ronda Rousey. Right? They saw that, they thought it was a fixed fight. They saw that, they thought that was fake. They thought that was a fixed fight. I mean, yeah, did Gina Carano begin to tap before the armbar was truly sank in? Of course. But one could argue that, hey man, I ain't trying to get close to getting my arm broke. I just lost 100 pounds. So she says. So, I'm not sure if that's true either, but who am I to say Gina Carano would make up anything or be off the beaten path with anything or with her takes? Nevertheless, one group of people that aren't really affiliated with MMA, not a part of the hardcore fans or anything, they thought that was fixed. The other side of it is I was watching a few clips from The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and, Jess Hilarious, DJ Envy. And I was watching a clip from it, and they brought up the fight over the weekend, and Jess Hilarious clearly had not seen the fight. And so they said, yeah, Ronda Rousey tapped Gina Carano out in 17 seconds. And Jess Hilarious goes, 17 seconds? Okay, Ronda. Damn, Ronda. She beat her in 17 seconds. That's the other side of the equation. People that aren't really affiliated, people that don't really watch MMA or anything like that, they hear that and that's like a joke to them. Like they think, oh, that was dominance. That was amazing. That's crazy. She beat her in 17 seconds. Because they don't really quite have the full grasp on the level of opponent she was fighting. Granted, I know Ronda ain't been in the cage for 10 years. But, I mean, man, Gina, what are we doing, bro? Gina wasn't even in shape for most of them 17 years. Like, Gina had a run where she was doing Marvel movies. She was in Deadpool, you know what I'm saying? And she was on The Mandalorian and everything. And, you know, she would get in shape for those roles. But Gina wasn't in no type of competition shape. When you see, you know, actors and people like that get in shape for a movie role or an action movie role or something along those lines, they ain't in shape for competition. You know what I'm saying? So, that's just the other side of the coin. So, you know, I think they're reporting around 12 million people they believe might have been watching this. You know, that's kind of expected. It's on Netflix. It's free because most of us don't even notice we're paying Netflix anymore. So, I could kind of see that, but I didn't really see what the big shock was, because to me, when the fight was first announced, this was the only way I saw this fight going. I never even thought Ronda would win with anything but the armbar. I didn't think she was going to win with not a rear naked choke, not a darce or anything. She was always going to win with the armbar. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I just didn't really get what the big deal was. Let's talk about the co-main event. Mike Perry stepping in the cage with Nate Diaz. This again, another fight in which this is exactly how I picked it. Right? This was exactly how I picked it. Because I said in my pre-fight breakdown of Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry, you can check out that video. Nate Diaz wasn't going to win this fight, bro. Yeah, Nate Diaz has got the name in mixed martial arts. And yeah, he's had moments in mixed martial arts where he looked outstanding. But in the last few years, Nate Diaz has still been competing. You know, he's done a boxing match or two, different things like that. He fought Jake Paul. So, he's been competing. But even though he came into this fight looking in shape, it's not the same Nate, bro. Not only is he older, but he's made his money. Like, Nate Diaz is not like a dude that's worth like $2 or $3 million. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's closer to 20. You know what I'm saying? Low key, probably in between 20 and 30 after his payout from the recent MVP fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just be real about that. The dude is, it's just, he's different, bro. I'm not going to call him a journeyman, but he's different. He's made the money and he deserves to capitalize off of the name that he's built, the Diaz Army. You know, Nate Diaz, shout to Nick Diaz. But, man, he's not really going to compete like how the Nate competed against Conor McGregor when he had everything to gain. He's not going to compete that way. You know, rest in peace, shout out to Marvin Hagler. You know, once said it, man, it's hard to get out there and train and hit the road and run and log all those miles, you know, on the pavement when you're sleeping in silk sheets, man. And I'm not saying Nate Diaz ain't hard no more, but this was the outcome that I saw. Mike Perry goes out there and beats the brakes off of Nate Diaz, beating him so bad. Of course, we always got the scar tissue issues with Nate Diaz. You know, he gets horribly, badly cut. Goes to the side. Cutman's trying to work on veteran Cutman, I might add. Veteran Cutman from back in the UFC in the early days. You know, Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock days. Bro, Nate wouldn't get ready to go back out there. You could see his skull right here. Like, his skull, you could see something. Like, right here, it was like there was flesh and then there was something else. And it looked a little awkward. You know why it looked awkward? Because that was the man's skull. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, he wasn't going to keep fighting, man. Shout out to Mike Perry. He goes out there and gets the win. Okay, so you want to move over to Francis Ngannou. Let's talk about Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins. First off, most of his career, Felipe Lins fought 205 pounds. Now, I know he's been fighting at heavyweight in PFL and won their tournament. Shout out to him. But That's kind of more of an indictment on the PFL heavyweights than Felipe Lins being that dude, right? Then you throw him in there against Francis Ngannou, who looks like $1,000,000. He outweighs the dude by a tremendous amount of weight. And he goes out there and he does exactly what we expected him to do in beating Felipe Lins. Then you got the shenanigans right after, right? These other organizations are a trip, and certain fighters are a trip. So right after, you've got Jon Jones is sitting out the audience, sitting in the audience, actually alongside Anderson Silva, but at this moment he wasn't by Anderson Silva. And Francis Ngannou is talking greasy to Jon Jones. That's cool. He earned that. He earns that right to talk greasy to Jon. Jon talked greasy to everybody else. But here's what's wild. Dumb UFC fighters. And I'm talking to the man that holds a spot on my wall. Based out of his fighting. Not his character. Not the whole man. You know what I'm saying? Just his fighting. But what's wild about this is Jon Jones is out in the audience, and he's just a very, very dumb man. Because for him to be put on the desk and everything at MVP, I'm definitely assuming he got a check. So that's cool. Get you a little extra check, Jon. But you put yourself in a dumb situation because in the position that you're in there with Francis Ngannou, MVP is going to prop you up to talk about fighting Francis Ngannou. They're going to greenlight Francis calling you out and talking about fighting you. They're going to take shots at the fact that you're held down by this contract. Francis Ngannou is going to style on you on the mic because you're chained down by a contract and he's a free man. So this, even though Jon Jones got a check, and I doubt Jon really cares, and Jon ain't new to looking stupid, but still, this made him look pitiful and stupid and weak because you got Francis over here talking about you don't know how to do business. Maybe one day you'll learn how to do business from me, because obviously Francis is free to move about the industry and take the fights that he wants, while Jon is stuck and couldn't do anything but retire from the UFC because they weren't giving him the fights that he wanted. And then, of course, he's retired, so that freezes his contract. So if he chooses he wants to fight again, you're only fighting in the UFC for Uncle Dana. That's how you gonna do. So when you go to an event like this, where one of the key promoters of this event being Jake Paul, doesn't like the UFC or Dana White, and then we're talking about Francis Ngannou, you're going to be made to look like the fool. That. Because you're still in a contract. You can't go nowhere. You can't go do a boxing match. You can't go fight Francis. You can't go fight anybody unless the UFC okays it. So I wouldn't even have put myself in that position. Jon's already rich. He probably didn't need the money, honestly. But I get it. You want an extra check? Take that extra check. But I never would have put myself in that position where not only the company being MVP and Netflix, and the man being Francis Ngannou hold all the cards over me. Strategically, that's not intelligent. So then Jon's got to sit there and get grilled on the mic, on the desk, by also working as an analyst. Tyron Woodley, he's got to get grilled by Tyron Woodley on how to do good business and how to get out of his contract with the UFC. As if anybody should be taking any sort of tips or getting any sort of lessons about anything from Tyron Woodley. Like, he made the best career decisions, you know what I'm saying? He lost to Jake Paul twice. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? So it's like, bro, got knocked out the last time. Badly. Face first. Hit the flow. So, man, it was a really strange. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Weird undertaking, but they did numbers. That's what they wanted to do. So, we'll see and keep our ears to the streets to see what the next MVP MMA card is going to be. On the other side, in the UFC, we saw the Korean Superboy go out there and win in the co-main event. And we saw Arnold Allen go out there and, I wouldn't say dominate, but definitely handedly, clearly beat Mikel Costa in the main event of the UFC Apex card. So, you know, only other real talking point that I saw everybody was chirping about was the fact that Dana White announced we'll be doing a video about this particular fight that was announced. Dana White announced that Conor McGregor is making his return to the UFC. He was stepping the octagon, I believe, either this June or this July against former BMF champion of the world, Max Holloway. Tricky, because it's at 170 pounds. So that kind of changes up things of just instantly thinking Max is going to win, which more than likely, Max is still probably going to win. Not giving my pick yet, but, you know, we know how the King of Snow, Conor McGregor, gets down. So I don't know if he's getting ready to come in there and do something to Max Holloway. But nevertheless, this fight was announced during the walkout of Francis Ngannou by Dana White. I saw everybody up in arms about that. Everybody, oh, Dana's petty. I can't believe you do that. It's just so low from Dana White. And I'm like, bro, it's Dana White. What do we expect? Like, it's Dana White. Like, I wouldn't put it past Dana to pay somebody to go smash a F-150 into the broadcast truck of Netflix at the MVP show to cut the feed. Like, it's like, what are we talking about here? Is he a ruthless businessman? Yes. With an extra on that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, bro. It's Dana White. What are we doing here, bro? What are we doing here? Is Dana White? Yeah, he gonna announce 25 other fights during Francis Ngannou's walkout. He don't like the dude. He's gonna take any opportunity he can to try to dumb that shine down. That's what he does. So that wasn't nothing new. That's what I would call last weekend's show of MMA on the UFC Vegas side, as well as on the MVP Netflix side. MMA. This ain't nothing new, because that's what, like, everything we saw in both of those cards, it wasn't nothing new, and it should have been expected. So that's what it is, man. Please like, subscribe, comment. I got a video about to come out where I'm going to be talking about the Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway fight that's been announced at welterweight. We'll jump off into that. No UFC this weekend, but we're going to try to find some other things to talk about. So please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you thought about the shenanigans over the weekend. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.